What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 83 of Nintendo Noise, Flip Screen Games' weekly Nintendo podcast. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend and co host, Mr. Max Wright.
Ahoy, ahoy.
Welcome back to the show, Max.
Thank you very much. I think it's been a few weeks since I've been on Nintendo Noise, so all so much fun to have.
Yeah, it's been a while, and you came back for a good one. I think we're gonna have some fun today. It's
I
another
think so.
another slow news week. So similar to last week's show, I had a one-on-one with Sierra, and we played a very fun Pokemon-related game. I've got a fun game on my hands for you this week. Of course, Bayonetta Origins, Cereza, and the Lost Demon is out this week, so everybody's got a little bit of Bayonetta on the mind, right? And of course, game's reviewing pretty well as of this recording. It's got an 80 out of 100 on Metacritic, and it's got people talking about what the future of the Bayonetta series looks like after this, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But you had an idea for a game that we're going to play later on that I'm very excited about, where we're going to take a look at every major Nintendo franchise, and we'll define what that means later. And we're going to rank every single one of them based solely on their spin-offs, which I think is going to be a very fun conversation.
I think so. I think there's some obvious sort of top hitters, but there's going to be some things that we maybe haven't thought about in a while. And I know while sort of doing the research for this, same as you, there's probably things you're like, oh yeah, like I forgot that came out, or I forgot that that's a spin off of that, or things like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into that. We've got some fun stuff to do.
Yeah, so let's jump into the Bayonetta Origins conversation because, of course, the game dropped today for normal folks, and like I said, a lot of good buzz around it so far. And during kind of all the conversation around Bayonetta again, the series creator Hideki Kamiya has revealed that Platinum Games does intend to continue to expand the franchise beyond this latest spinoff. In a interview with Famitsu that was translated by Video Games Chronicles Robert Sefazan, I hope that's how you say that. If not, apologies, Robert. Kamiya said that Platinum has been discussing its plans for the series internally, but they had not had anything approved by Nintendo yet. Basically, this is how he broke it down. We would like to expand the world of the series with a new collection of games. We are currently working towards that. And the Bayonetta Origins director, Taniri-san, and I have been discussing what we would like to do next. We haven't spoken with Nintendo about it. And then Makoto Okazaki, who is the producer of the Bayonetta series on Nintendo's side of the fence, because something that I didn't realize was that Sega does still own the IP, and it's only been licensed out to
Oh
Nintendo
right,
for
I
the
thought Nintendo
latest.
bought it.
Yeah, it's something that I also thought that they had acquired it as part of their salvaging
Yeah.
of the series, but I guess it makes sense, right? Sega did produce the original one, so it
Or
would
at
be
least I
their IP.
thought that maybe it had fallen into Platinum's arms, like they owned it, and now Nintendo is just helping publish it. But I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's not the case.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting, which I'm sure longtime Bayonetta fans would be aware of, but for us casuals here, the two of us, was news to me. But anyway, Makoto said, "We currently have nothing concrete to share with you about the future of the series yet, but I personally do not believe this is the end of Bayonetta." So pretty interesting because I think there was a lot of confusion around this game when it was first revealed, right? And it
Hmm.
seemed like an odd choice for Bayonetta. And I think the whole Bayonetta Origins colon like made me get a sense that maybe this was the intention here was to have this spin-off become a series if there
Yeah, like
was,
a series of Bayonetta
juice.
Origins games, I guess.
Yeah, right.
That was my initial thought, but I do think we get a lot of things where it's like subheadings and colons and things they chuck into games. It sort of like becomes meaningless after a certain point. And I think it's weird that you get new
Yeah.
IP like Horizon Zero Dawn, for example, that came out as Horizon colon Zero Dawn, but it was the first game in the Horizon series, so it's odd that they put a subheading on it. And I think we do see a lot of that, and I think it can get quite confusing. But this seems like almost maybe a way to um, uh, tack the name on the game so that people know it's Bayonetta, or that people know that it's not just like a new thing, or I don't know. There's all sorts of different naming conventions and stuff, isn't there? But I think it's interesting that they are thinking of more because I've not played Bayonetta 3 yet. I was waiting for it to sort of go down in price a little bit. Um, so I've been sort of looking forward to playing that one. And this one seems like a lot of fun, something different, and maybe something I'll look into again when it's sort of dropped down in price. It's quite expensive for something I'm not entirely sure about just yet. Um, but yeah, I think I'm glad people seem to be enjoying it. And I know people have already finished it. I think it came out on Friday, right? And people have been enjoying it. Uh, so yeah, is this something you a Bayonetta guy? Have you played any of the Bayonetta games, Pete?
I'm not. I There's a lot about Bayonetta that I think has created friction for me. And I've never really tried it out, so I can't say that it's not for me. But on its face, it doesn't seem as if it's for me.
Yeah, sure.
Platinum's games generally don't appeal to me, and like
Mhm.
that type of, um, the that kind of like I I always tie it back to Devil May Cry. That's like the first game of that ilk that I'm aware of. So I
Mhm.
Lord knows if that's the origins of it, but that kind of, you know, edgy character action, like beat 'em up type style where it
Yeah.
is like about getting like the really high combos and getting like these really crazy animations and all that kind of stuff. It's just never super appealed to me, you know? Even when I was young, like the aesthetic of Devil May Cry appealed to me more than the gameplay.
Yeah.
And with Bayonetta, neither of them really appealed to me. I think
Mhm.
like Bayonetta as a character feels very, um, I don't know, like of a certain style of like, like Japanese media trope, that like kind of like the hypersexual, like badass type character is just not something that I am generally drawn
Sure.
to.
Yeah, so I mean,
Um,
it's all quite sort of tongue in cheek the way she sort of does a lot of stuff, but you are right. It's like she's completely
yeah,
infallible. There is no, um, unlike Kratos, while he is super strong and super powerful, he also has like a vulnerable side to him, and he has to deal with the things that he's done. Maybe more in the newer games than the older games. But I guess I see sort of Bayonetta as like the female version of Kratos, whereas Kratos is like this hyper masculine, hyper
yeah,
like rage filled person for like the first three games. With sort of tragic backstory. Bayonetta is sort of the female equivalent of where she's like hyper feminine. She's like, owns the fact that she is, a sexy character and that she's sort of got like feminine charm. She's sort of quite sarcastic, and I think that's yeah, it's different, but I think it's of a similar sort of style of they're coming from the same place.
yeah. I think it's just like that. There's something about that that feels dated to me,
Hmm.
because I think if Kratos was still that character now, in the way he was in that original trilogy, right, where he is this kind of like, he's like this super tough man's man, and he's got a mini game where he has sex with a bunch of ladies, and and like just that whole vibe is something that, um, yeah, I don't know. It's just it doesn't inherently appeal to me, right? And I don't. It's like not like a judgment thing. It's not like I think there's anything wrong with it. And I would certainly not begrudge anybody for vibing with it, but for me, it's just never it's a flavor that doesn't quite match my palate, and I
Sure.
think the fact that I also don't love the gameplay is kind of
Hmm.
like, all right, like there's not much for me here. Whereas I think like if I thought the gameplay was like as fire as I know people feel about platinum games, right? Um I think I would probably be able to get in on it and be like, okay, cool. This is like, goofy over the top, like action movie kind of energy. And like,
Hmm.
I like that when I like it. But if the base experience doesn't have an X factor that, you know, um, that really makes it hit for me, it's just not, it's not
Yeah.
something I feel super motivated to go out of my way for.
I think that's fair, and it's interesting that this spin-off, Cereza and the Lost Demon, does sort of none of that from the sound from the way it looks like. It doesn't do,
Yeah, it's a totally different
it's
vibe.
oh yeah, yeah. It's not like this super adult. Like sometimes you might be afraid to play it in case someone might see you playing it because of the way Bayonetta moves or the way that sort of when her clothes come off and she does certain attacks and stuff.
Sure,
This
right.
very much feels like a children's storybook with a sort of a lovable, quite creepy looking, but lovable like stuffed animal, and then Um, and then she's like a younger, she's Cereza, not Bayonetta when she's younger. Um, so yeah, it's like a completely different. It's interesting, like shift in tone.
Totally different style of gameplay too,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Which is like
absolutely.
I find this a lot more interesting,
Hmm.
just from like conceptually, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is definitely like this is the kind of thing that I had in the past envisioned for Metroid, like a younger Samus Aran when she lived with the Chozo and she sort of didn't have a power suit yet, and maybe she gets lost in some caves like the caves on Zebes, and she finds like a Chozo, the statues, one of
Yeah.
those that sort of like Torizo who moves around, or Torizo, and then they would have to work in conjunction, almost like Monument Valley, to where the Chozo does all of the sort of heavy lifting and stuff, and Samus just sort of directs it and moves around. I actually had, I wanted to see that a long time ago. Um, so it's interesting now that game has come out with Bayonetta, uh, and
That
they
would
are,
be really interesting just conceptually to have like
mhm,
a an origin for Samus, and like I could easily see you having like a it's kind of like the intro to Horizon Zero Dawn where it's like, oh, there's like this coming of age thing
mhm.
that she's gonna do, and this will be her test to really be like a true Chozo, and then like
Yes, yeah.
she gets that gets derailed, right? And then she goes off on this whole adventure that makes her the person she is.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think I assume that's what this game is, I guess, is that, we know Cereza from, I haven't played 3 to know if she's features in there, but we know her from the first game as a younger version of Bayonetta, who the Bayonetta we play as has to sort of protect and look after. So maybe this game is called Bayonetta Origins. Maybe we sort of see the beginnings of her becoming the Bayonetta that she is, uh, towards the end of the game. So yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
kind of
sounds
my
interesting.
my thought is like, yeah, it's like the first start of that journey, right? And it's like not quite a full origin story, but
Mhm.
like, it's like it's almost like a young Indiana Jones thing, where it's like,
Yes. Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Different era of adventures.
Mhm. Yeah, great way of describing that.
But yeah, I'm glad to see that it's landing. Like
Mhm.
it seems like it's something that people are connecting with, and in general, I like the idea of you know um just being adventurous with spin-offs. I think that's something that like Nintendo does so well is leverage
Yes.
IP um to do new things and to take risks, and that's super cool, right? Cuz like I don't know if this game gets as much attention if it's not tied to Bayonetta. So
Yes,
them
I
being
agree.
able, like, how do we explore the lore and deepen this world that we've created that people love so much, but also how do we explore new gameplay styles and
Mhm.
new ways of telling the story and like a different tone and different cast of characters to some degree. That's cool. I think that's a cool thing for them to be putting energy into.
Yeah, I agree, and I hope we see sort of more of this kind of thing.
Agreed. Speaking of more of this kind of thing, we're going to talk about Nintendo's franchises and their many, 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 many spin-offs in just a minute here. But before that, let me remind you that this episode of Nintendo Noise is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of March. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valenz, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Sobe, Snackigo, Ty the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. Y'all are the real to the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. Remember, if you want to become a Patreon producer just like they did, if you want to check out some of our sister shows, if you want to write into the show or keep the conversation rolling between episodes, the best way to do all of those things is to go and give us go and click the link below to our website, flipscreen.games, where you can find all that stuff and much, much more. However, you choose to get involved and show your support, we thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Nintendo Noise. So, Max, you came to me this morning, right, with this idea, and I love it. So what we're gonna do here, we've outlined what I think are the major Nintendo franchises,
Mhm.
and I major is debatable, right? It's tough. I know that it's not always clear cut what exactly makes something major or not, and there's not a great metric to judge it by when it comes to Nintendo because I was thinking initially, like, do we go through all the franchises that are represented in Smash? But a
Mhm.
bunch of those are only have one game, so it gets dicey.
Hard to have a spin-off of Duck Hunt, I guess, isn't it?
Precisely. So what I did is I came up with a list. I went through it. I crossed out all the ones that don't have any spin-offs, and that's our list. So if there's a game on here or a franchise on here that you feel should have been represented and isn't for any reason, that's why. That was my thought process here.
Feel free to argue in the comments, as well, because, like, it's just sweet, sweet, what do you call it when someone, someone replies to something and you get when someone replies to something on like a YouTube video, someone, comments or likes or something. What do you call that?
I
What's
don't
the
I don't
word
even
I'm
know
looking
what are you
for?
trying to say?
Like, it's good when people argue in your
Oh,
comments because
interact? Like interaction?
interaction, yeah, I guess that's the word I've lost for some reason. Yeah, it's just good to
Okay.
have it's good to have people arguing in your comments because then YouTube's like, people really, really like engaging with this content. Just do that. Just argue in the comments
There
a
we
bit.
go.
Oh,
Okay. I'm with you.
Mario,
I'm with you.
2D Mario is bad. Let's start that debate in the comments.
What the get out
I'm
of here. You
trying
can't
to
just
help.
you
I'm
can't
trying
just
to
drop
help.
a bomb like that and walk. All right, okay. All right,
Okay, I'm
fine.
trying to
Start
help.
arguing in the comments, everybody. Crucify Max, please. But before we do this,
Mhm,
right? So I think we need to have a conversation about defining where we draw the line, because that
mhm,
was a question I ran into as we get into this, right? Because if we want to be really strict about this, right?
mhm.
Like if we want to just go based on chronology, right? And the quote unquote proper origin, then technically every single Mario game and every single Mario spinoff, including Yoshi and Wario and all that stuff, is a Donkey Kong spinoff.
I am annoyed that you took that out of my list because that was gonna be a fun joke where we start listing all the Donkey Kong spin-offs, and I list off Mario Galaxy, Mario Odyssey, and I just say that obviously Donkey Kong's best, but that's fine, you took them all out, you've gone very specific, and that's fine.
I'm trying to be above board here. I'm trying to be scientific about this list, Max. It's
Mhm,
got to be a
mhm.
definitive ranking system. And I think it's a big question.
I think Donkey Kong is its own thing. Mario is technically a spin-off of Donkey Kong, but they are 2 distinct franchises. There is a Donkey Kong franchise, there is a Mario franchise. Same way that, but I also wouldn't say that things like Yoshi, are their own franchise. I think they specifically come from Mario, which I know is difficult, but I think,
Well, but why? Why is
because
that different?
you never get Yoshi without Mario. You never get Luigi without Mario. You often get Donkey Kong just by himself with his family, chilling out, hanging out.
But that's the thing is you do get those characters without Mario in their own spin-off series games. There are some, like you think about like a Yoshi story. I don't believe Mario has an appearance in that. He's in Yoshi's Island, sure, but not in Yoshi's story. And in like the Yoshi puzzle games, those are Yoshi centric. No Mario.
Mm,
Yoshi's Woolly
I
World.
Yeah, okay, you are right there.
And then in Wario Land, right? Like I believe there is some Mario representation. But then in like WarioWare, no Mario. He's got his own cast of characters over there.
I think
So
yeah, I still think
that's why
Wario,
it's
yeah.
interesting. I don't know that it's cut and dry, because I think if you're going to say that Yoshi and Wario count as Mario spinoffs, then why isn't Mario a Donkey Kong spinoff? Is it just because like technically Mario's first appearance is in a Donkey Kong game, but it's not quite Mario, and like there's
That's
I don't
probably a
know,
good shout. Yeah.
but I don't. It's weird when you really get down to it, right? Because like on the Nintendo wiki that I use to get some of this, it's the Nintendo fandom wiki that I use to get some of the game information here. They have Donkey Kong listed as a spin-off of the Mario franchise.
I think a good way to end this discussion is to think that I'm pretty sure Mario and Donkey Kong are the only example of
This
this
collapsing list
disagreement.
thing. Yeah.
So I think maybe we should ignore it for this one and separate them, but not separate anything else. Personally, that's what I
So
think.
you're saying we leave Wario and Yoshi as Mario spin-offs, we count Donkey Kong as its own thing.
Yes,
Okay.
because Donkey Kong came first. Um, so yes, and it just
Pretty
makes
quickly
the whole
passed.
thing a lot easier.
Okay. All right. I'm
And
comfortable with this.
I love ease. You know me.
And my thing is, that feels right to me. But in the
Feels
same
right to me
breath,
too.
it's so fucked up. Like it's weird when you get down to it, it doesn't quite add up. And
And
I'd be interested to hear what people think in the comments.
yeah, I do feel bad for poor old Donkey Kong. Sorry, for poor old Wario, whoever, who is forever going to be resigned to being a spin-off character despite having sort of gone off and done his own things. But
Yeah.
you know, he is literally a an evil version of Mario. So he can't really be that upset when that's his lineage. You know, that's how everyone knows of him.
He's a mirror image.
He's literally the same guy with a different, not even a different, a slightly different name. Um,
And that's the thing that I think is so interesting because, like, with Donkey Kong, like, there is like a broader mythology. There's like a whole era of Donkey Kong that doesn't have anything to do with Mario. I get the feeling like there's more division between them, but in the
mhm,
same breath, it's like Donkey Kong's in the Mario movie. Donkey Kong is in all the Mario spin-offs or
mhm.
most of the Mario spin-offs, right? Like it's uh it's an
I th
interesting one.
It is an
I think
interesting
people
one.
think of him as a Mario character, but technically,
I think they might be wrong about that, just because there are so many Donkey Kong games that don't have any relation to Mario. You know, the whole Donkey Kong
but
Country franchise.
he's in the Mario movie though.
I know he's in the Mario movie, but the Mario movie is paying homage to all of Mario and features like all the different things. I don't know.
But
It's just a different.
that includes Donkey Kong though. He's in it. Wario's not yet. He'll be in the sequel, I'm sure. But
Yeah, that's true. I say we leave it. We move on, and we just do the thing.
I think it's fine. We bit it off. I think you're right. That's fine.
As long as everyone knows that we are uh, pushing on, and that I don't want to have to get bogged too much down in that to ruin the fun. As long as people know that, and they know we're just
I'm just
counting
saying
Mario and Donkey Kong as separate.
if they want us to have this as a separate episode at some point and we really get into the debate, I'd be interested in doing it. I think it's an interesting conversation.
Right.
Because if we really want to get crazy with it, right? Then like what? Luigi's Mansion, technically a Donkey Kong spinoff.
Yeah, yeah,
When
yeah.
you get right down to
We
it,
could be there forever.
you could be crazy. You could get crazy with it.
You can.
Um. So anyway, okay. So I think that sufficiently answers this question for me. Now, here's the other thing that I want to ask: do we consider non-game media
No.
in the
These
ranking?
are just games. I think we should
Just
only
video games.
if the fact that we're basing this off of the Bayonetta game, we're not basing this off of the Bayonetta anime or the Bayonetta
Sure,
sort of
sure.
anime movie or whatever. We're basing this just on the fact that Cereza and the Lost Demon is out.
Fair.
I say we stick to that as
I
the
think
metric.
I think that's a good caveat because then
Mhm.
I think without these adjustments, it gets a little bit fishy, you know.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. So then the only other thing that I'm going to throw out here is that
Mhm.
for the sake of consistency, episode wise, we will include Bayonetta in the ranking, even though it is technically a Sega owned IP.
Yeah, just because it's the whole basis of the whole thing,
It's the
right?
whole,
And
yeah,
I think now it kind of is a Nintendo franchise. Which is another debate I don't want to get into, but I think now the fact that it's, Nintendo have published it and they've released the 2 games, and the fact that they're even saying, "We've got these ideas, we've yet to run it through Nintendo, and they have to run these things past Nintendo," I think it's fine to say that, that's that it's a Nintendo franchise it for
yeah.
this. Because there's loads of
I,
things you
I
could
think
go
so.
into, like Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, for example, you could count as, a Nintendo game because it's only on Nintendo, and then there's also spin-offs within that are on the DS and stuff like that, and I don't wanna get into all of that. Let's just do,
No, no,
you
no.
know, yeah,
Keep it
Nintendo
clean.
franchises. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Keep it clean. So, uh, I here's I think there's two ways we can go about this now. We can either go alphabetically through the list that I have and we can rank as we go, or
Mhm.
we can just start trying to put ones where we think they make sense, right? What do you think?
Uh, ask me one more time?
So I think we can either like go through them alphabetically, right? We start like
Mhm.
first one on the list is Animal Crossing, and we just say, well, Animal Crossing's the first one on the list, so it goes at number one. Then Bayonetta is the next one. So do we want Animal Crossing above that or Bayonetta? And then we just keep
Yeah,
going.
okay, fine, that sounds good to me.
We'll do that. Okay. I
Yeah,
think
let's
that
do it
makes
that
sense.
way. Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right. So then number one on the list, Animal Crossing.
Now, can I just say that Animal Crossing should not be number 1? I know it's the only one on the list, but I think it should be by being on the list first, it should be bottom of the list just because both of these spin-offs, Happy Home Designer, Amiibo Festival, are both games that I'm
Not
pretty
good.
sure people didn't care about. People were quite upset by Amiibo Festival's existence, I remember. The only good thing about it was when it became really cheap and you could get the Amiibo for like 2 Amiibo for like £10
That was really
with a
good. I
box.
did like that. I did
Mhm.
benefit from that.
But that doesn't mean that the game is good, so I think this should be on the list, but we have to be aware that it's at the bottom of the list for now.
Oh, so here's what I've done.
Mhm.
You can pull up the document yourself, Max, and
I'm
follow
in it.
along with the kids at
I'm in
home.
it.
I've got it open for the kids on YouTube right now. At number one, we have nothing. At number two, we have Animal Crossing.
Wish we'd have thought of this earlier so we could put it into a one of those fun tier
The
lists.
tier lists, yeah, I
Yeah, that
see.
would
I
have been
wanted to
fun.
do that, but I spent so much time researching all of these spin-offs. I got so deep down this rabbit hole that I'm like, we ran out of time.
Yeah,
So it is what it is.
it's all
Number
right.
two,
We can always
Bayonetta.
make it after, so we can always after the fact, we can make the tier list and post it.
We could do that. We could do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I like that. Maybe for the thumbnail or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Number two, Bayonetta. I think we put Bayonetta at number one.
Number 1, Bayonetta. Yeah, I mean, the
Yeah,
game.
because I think the Animal Crossing ones are Garbo,
Yeah.
and Bayonetta Origins has an 80 out of
Yeah, it
100
seems
on
pretty good.
Metacritic.
Seems
That's
like a
pretty
game that
good.
I'd be interested in playing, whereas these other Animal Crossing
Yeah.
games are not.
No, I agree. I agree. Okay, so next up we got Donkey Kong. I think that
So,
goes at number one.
yeah, I think so for now. For some of the sort of key ones that I know you've got a list here, but off the top of my head, you've got Diddy Kong Racing, you've got Donkey Konga, where you've got the Hujima what's it?
The peripheral bongo drums.
Exactly, yeah, you've got Mario versus Donkey
Classic.
Kong, they were on the Game Boy Advance, they were pretty good. You got the one on the, it was on the DS or the Game Boy Advance where you're, tilting, you've got the tilting one, and then the one where you're, like, swinging from branch to branch. You've got, Barrel Blast, whatever that is. I'm actually now just reading off the list. There's a lot on there.
So
Even
I
Diddy Kong
think
Country goes.
the one I wanted to shout out was Donkey Kong Land on the Game Boy. That was like it was like a Donkey Kong Country like sister series on Game Boy. Fantastic. And then of course you want to go back a little bit more historical. Donkey Kong Jr.
Yeah.
Huge, huge, right? Like there was a time where he was one of the main mascots of Nintendo.
Mhm.
Obviously a character who's kind of waned in relevance over time.
'Cause Diddy Kong's come and stolen him away.
Yeah, right. And then I believe canonically the understanding is that the character we now know to be Donkey Kong is Donkey Kong Jr. and that
Mhm.
his father was the original titular Donkey Kong, is my
Yes.
understanding.
Yeah, I think they're now yeah, he's Cranky Kong now, supposedly.
Yeah, I believe I don't know how canon that is, but that's my
Mm.
understanding.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think Donkey Kong Country alone, right, is one where it's like
Oh,
you gotta
now, yeah, it's interesting that you consider that a spin-off, but I guess technically you're right because
it is, I would
Donkey
say.
Kong the Donkey Kong that we sort of know and the Donkey Kong, it wasn't a platform, was it? It was
No?
the Donkey Kong. It was yeah, so I
Yep.
think Donkey Kong Country
And then Donkey Kong
more than
Jr. was also
counts.
like a more puzzle kind of game,
Mhm.
not
And
a
then there was the
platformer.
Maths one, Donkey Kong Junior Math,
Right, right. That's the
which they
thing is like I would
cut
say
off
it
the
was
S.
historically more of a puzzle franchise or
Mhm.
like arcade style clearing game rather than a platformer, right? So Country I would say is a spinoff.
Yeah.
And obviously had its own style, introduced a lot of new characters, you know.
I think that's up for massive debate, um, anyway, whether that counts as a spin-off, and I agree with you, I think it probably is, even though that's now what he is probably best known for. Like, all the games that have been out recently for Donkey
I
Kong
think
are country.
it's like arguably a sub series, spin-off when you get into spin-off it's like what exactly does that mean, right?
Mhm.
But it's like technically that series is spun off from the original Donkey Kong trilogy, right?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which is different. So I think if you're counting that, then this is a heavyweight. Like this franchise is like potentially a top 3,
Yes.
cuz
Yeah,
some of these
hefty.
games absolutely slap.
But, I mean, we've still got more to come, right?
Oh yeah. And again, some of these are whatever, right? Like the tilting one, not great. Like some of the barrel blast was like a Wii game that was a racer. It's like
Yeah.
there was a bleak time in the Donkey Kong franchise before Tropical Freeze and Country Returns and all
Yeah.
that. All right, so next up we got Fire Emblem, which has Tokyo
Come on.
Mirage Sessions #FE, excuse me, which is the crossover with Shin Megami Tensei. And
Very popular
then
game from memory as well. People that liked it really liked it.
people do like it. Yeah, that's true. And then, of course, there's Fire Emblem Heroes, which is the mobile game, which is, I believe, aside from Pokemon Go, Nintendo's most successful effort on
Oh, yeah,
mobile.
it was the number 1, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that was it had
Made a
everything.
lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very
It was the only
fun.
one that made any money for a long time. It was the only one they ever
Yeah.
updated every month. Is it still going or have they shut that down now?
And I believe it's still live.
That's probably because it's just making bank.
It's good. It's actually a good game, you
Mm,
know? Like, I lost interest in it after a while, but, I mean, it's a good simplified, Fire Emblem experience, you
sure.
know? And then Fire Emblem Warriors, of course, is one of the Koei Tecmo Zelda, or not Zelda, excuse me, Nintendo collaborations with the Warriors team
Yep.
over there, of which there are a couple. Um, I don't like any of those games, but
No, I tried,
a lot of people do like them.
yeah, I tried Hyrule Warriors and I played through the story and was like, "Yeah, maybe I'm not a Warriors guy," but people seem to really like Fire Emblem Warriors. I remember when the most recent one came out, that was, there was 2, wasn't it? There was the original Fire Emblem Warriors, which I wasn't too hot on the Wii, sorry, very early on in the Switch. I think it was, like, announced during the initial, Switch, sort of game reveal, I
Like,
think,
yeah,
in January of 2017, and
I
then
think
they
that
had
might be
one
right.
last year that was the, Three Houses one, that
Right.
there were some people that I was speaking to that were like, "You need to play this game, like, it's really good. I don't think it's gonna get the attention that it needs." And I think that that's probably still the case. I don't know if it did very well for Nintendo, but people seem to really like it. However, where do I put it in the rankings? I guess maybe just over Bayonetta, maybe,
I
because it's
think for
got,
me right now it's number 2 because
yeah, it's got
even
a
just on
few games.
sheer numbers, right? Like, there's
Yeah.
one good Bayonetta spinoff. There are 3 good Fire Emblem spinoffs, depending
Yeah.
on who you ask.
Well, 4 because there's 2 Warriors games, wasn't there? So
True, true. I'm more thinking like spinoff series, but yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Before games when you get right down to it. So
Yeah, yeah.
I would say that makes it a strong number 2 based on the
Chuck it
list we
into
have
2.
presently.
I'm
You know,
glad that we're agreeing so far.
so far it's been easy. Yeah, I think we're gonna get to the debate later.
Mhm.
But I think for now, it's been pretty easy. So I think this is the first interesting one for me. The next up is Kirby.
Yeah, this is a toughie because while there are some great ones in there, so for me, Kirby's Air Ride is one of my favorite sort of GameCube games.
Classic,
Really good
right?
game.
People love it.
I've been playing it recently as well, like just really enjoying what it has to offer. And it was like a spin-off that very similar to Mario Kart, where it's like, you don't expect it to work. Maybe the first Mario Kart, they're like, "Oh, we put Mario in cars. Why?" Same with Kirby. We made a Kirby racing game. Why did you do that? Oh, but it's a load of fun, and there's some interesting, unique modes, and there's like a mode that defines it that isn't just racing. That still feels quite Kirby in the way where you're absorbing things and you're sort of collecting things. And a lot of those modes as well that were in Air Ride moved on into Smash Brothers. I think the Smash on 3DS had an entire mode that was basically uh, Air Ride's city trial mode, but just put into Smash Brothers. There's a lot in here as well. Like there was one that came out on the Dream Course, I think, or Dream Buffet, whatever it was that came out recently.
Dream Buffet is the new one. Dream
Yeah,
Course is the one from the Super Nintendo, and that game
right.
is fire. That is a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
really fun. It's like a golf style game, kind of.
Hmm.
And I think it was kind of like an overlooked gem back in the day, And I know for our generation, I know a lot of people got on a lot of people's radar because the Game Grumps did an extremely long playthrough of it for like years, and then they had like a fan cart that added extra levels. So like I know a lot of people got exposed to it, in like
Okay.
the aughts
Maybe picks it up
through
later on then.
YouTube. Yeah, and
Yeah,
it
sure.
kind of found new life that way as well.
Mhm.
So like that's a really really great game as well. But I think after that, it's like there's
Oh, yeah, there's
some
some stinkers, like, the
there's
ones
some
that
real stinkers on this
whatever the sort
list.
of, like, ones that should have been free that cost money on the Switch in the last couple of years and,
All of them, right? Like
um
fighters, the
yeah,
battle royale one,
yeah.
like um yeah, I mean, those games are whatever, I guess, but it's just like I don't know,
I don't
I
think it's as bad as Animal Crossing, maybe, because there are a few good ones in there, like Air Ride,
yeah.
like the one that you just said a second ago, the Dream Course. But I also feel like Bayonetta hasn't got any bad ones to put it down. So I'm gonna say let's put it above Animal Crossing because the Animal Crossing ones are both stinkers. Uh,
Mm,
oh,
that's
what?
that's interesting because I think I agree with you, but I'm like, do we put Bayonetta above Kirby because it has one good spinoff when
All right.
Kirby has more good spinoffs, but there's also a bunch that suck? Like, it's like, do we punish it for the ones that are bad, or do we focus on the ones that are good?
You make a good point, and I think yeah, go on, chuck it above Bayonetta. I'm that was maybe I was too easily swayed there, but yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm gonna go that way specifically for this. I'll say for as much as I think a lot of these games are garbo, um, the ones that are good, and I
Mhm.
think that Kirby's Air Ride is a game that I think many people would put on a definitive GameCube game list,
Yeah.
and that I think that gives it a little cachet for me.
All right, I'm okay with that.
I have a hard time thinking that Bayonetta Origins is one of those games when we look back on the Switch.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Don't
I
know if
agree
that's
with you.
fair or not, but
No, no, I think you're right.
all right. So next up, we got the cream of the crop here.
Here we
It's
go, cream of the
Mario.
crop. Yeah, this
Mario's
is
got to
really
be number
hard.
one.
Yeah, this is really hard to argue. It's got to be number one. I mean, um, I see on here you put like 3D Mario and Super Mario on there, but I don't. I think they're like the core. There's just different types of core Mario. I think
Yeah,
when you spin off, you're starting to think about the sports games. You're starting to think about Captain Toad games. You're starting to think about Wario, about Luigi's Mansion, about Mario plus Rabbids, about the Yoshi games. Like I really do think that there's just so much and it's sort of why Mario is the king of
and
gaming because he's a character, and because the character doesn't make any sense, he's a plumber from New York who's in, like, a fantasy land with a princess and an evil turtle, blah, blah. Because that makes no sense, he quite easily fits into all of these things, as ridiculous
yep,
as it may be.
yeah,
So he is, like, the ultimate spin-off guy. You can just put him in anything and he works.
exactly. Yeah, he has that special quality that only a few characters have.
Yes, I agree, yeah. But I guess maybe while we're talking about that, let's talk about some of the good Mario ones. You've got Mario Land, the whole franchise there, WarioWare, that whole franchise. You've got a load of good Yoshi games, that have sort of spanned all sorts of consoles, right? And Yoshi's one of those characters that has also they've used, the unique qualities of the, um, the systems. Like, there was the Yoshi game where you had, like, the touching, and there was the Yoshi one where you had to rotate on the Game Boy. I think there's only a few
Yeah,
games that used that. One of them's Donkey Kong. I think it was a Kirby rolling game as well.
yeah, yeah.
Um and then, yeah, you've got some stuff recently like Woolly World and Crafted World that have sort of used Yoshi as a way to almost like, test out hardware and because I know that Crafted World was the only Unreal Engine 4 game Nintendo's ever done, and they were sort of testing the engine on the Switch with something that, could maybe be more realistic while not being realistic, and I think Yoshi's Crafted World by being, um, a it's trying to look like real objects, just not real people and things like that. Yeah, interesting. I think Yoshi's one of those characters that has endless appeal as well.
Absolutely, and again, right? We brought up the WarioWare franchise, which is like totally established in its own right at this point. And then like again, there's some of the lesser ones, and I don't mean necessarily lesser in quality, but I think in memory, right? Like there's the RPGs, there's the Mario and Luigi series, which are some of those are fantastic.
Mhm.
There's the Paper Mario series,
Oh,
which
yeah, yeah, of course.
mixed bag, I guess, in some cases, but Thousand Year Door and the original, like the hits are hits, right?
Mhm.
Not a franchise, but Super Mario RPG is on that list. Obviously, like you said, there's the sports games, there's Mario Party, there's Mario Kart. Like Mario Kart 8 is the best selling like Nintendo game ever, right? Like, it's one of the most ubiquitous video games ever made is Mario Kart, right?
Mhm.
Everyone plays Mario Kart, everyone plays Mario Party.
Everyone loves it.
Um, Absolutely, right? And then again, right, like, I called out, like, the Super Mario series. If you don't wanna consider that, there's the new Super Mario Brothers series, right?
Yeah.
You have, like, Mario Galaxy and the 3D stuff, like, it's
Again,
just
I don't really count those as spin-offs. I think they're just like
they're,
Mario
like,
evolved a
proper.
certain way. Yeah, Mario evolved a certain way, but they're still doing the older ones. There's just 2 forms of or a few forms of Mario really, and I think there are
Yeah,
core Mario games, and I think they outlined those when Odyssey came out, they outlined those of like 3D World is like this, but Mario Galaxy is more like these games, and,
sure.
yeah,
But
it's very
even
hard
so,
to
right?
argue.
Even among that, that's something that I never thought about until I started working at Loot Pots, and I talked to somebody about this, where there are subclasses within that, right? Because there's the 3D Mario games that are level clear, and then there are the 3D Mario games that are open world, and those are two
Yeah,
different kinds of games.
yeah.
You know, Mario Galaxy is more of a level clear type game, whereas like Odyssey and 64 and Sunshine are like that's the open world vibe.
Mhm.
So it's like it is, I wouldn't call them like spin-offs or anything necessarily, but I think it's worth just pointing out just like the depth that the IP has to offer,
Oh,
whether
yeah.
it's, you know, um kind of whatever genre really, right? Like it's a very, very small number of games genres that Mario doesn't have hands on.
Yep. And I
And
think it's
again,
'cause
right, like we
the
brought up
fans are
the
invested.
RP. I'm sorry, what was that?
I say because the fans are obviously very invested, and they will
Yeah.
just play good games that happen to have Mario branding.
And again, I think it's Nintendo being smart with how they leverage the IP, and then
Mhm.
like realizing that like Mario moves units and that like you can be like, okay, like we want to try a new puzzle game like Dr. Mario, right? Like, okay, yeah, and it's like that's an iconic thing now, and it's just another and like again, you talked about like trying out new hardware. There's like Mario Paint, which
Uh-huh.
is totally a unique piece of software. There's Super Mario Maker, which is a
Oh, yeah.
completely
Forgot about Mario
unique
Maker,
piece of
yeah.
software. And that's the thing, right? Like that we've rattled off so many of these and we're even forgetting some and I didn't even get all of them on the list because there's so many. I didn't even think of Mario Maker, right? But
Which
it
is why
is. That
it's
is a spin-off.
the obvious number 1 choice. So,
Yeah, it
it's gonna be
has to
hard.
be.
It's going to be hard. There are a few in here that I think maybe have there's gonna be an argument for number 2. Maybe not arguments between us, but, like, they're gonna be scrapping it out in
I
the
think there's one legit contender. I
Yeah?
think there's one. And
Okay,
that's that we'll
let's
get there when we get there.
we'll get there, we'll get there.
All right. So, next up, we have Metroid, which I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this one because
I
I feel
hate
like they're all bad, right?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but, I don't think Hunters is necessarily bad, but I do think, like, in terms of, uh, other Metroid games and other sort of DS games, it sort of doesn't quite hold up. It was a novelty at the time. It was fun. There was a multiplayer mode, but it really didn't have any legs, and the actual gameplay was so linear, like, I don't know. I'm not even sure if I would call Hunters a spin-off really, because it feels like just like a sub-game of Metroid Prime for the DS, like just a scaled down version. But, I mean, also Pinball's not bad, it's just like a fun retelling of Prime. But I would also say that like, Federation Force, Metroid Blast Ball, uh, yeah, they're not great, and especially considering Federation Force came around at a time when they didn't need to do a spin-off, and that just upset people more.
Yeah, everybody wanted a
Um,
proper Metroid game, and they're like, "Here, it's Metroid," kind of. It's like Monkey Paw,
yeah.
It's like
Yeah, yeah.
the Monkey
Yeah,
Paw
I think
finger
I think
curls.
it's a shame that Metroid is a franchise that is sort of doomed to have bad spin-offs for now. They might change that, and I guess, many people would have thought that Prime was a spin-off when that first came out, because, maybe they weren't expecting it to sort of be good and really come out
I
that
think
strong,
you
but
could
I
argue that that is a spinoff if we want to get cheeky with
Nah.
it, because
No,
it's
no, no,
like
no. I think it's like Mario, there's core 3D, there's core 2D, and I think
right.
that is their core 2D and 3D. Like, when they made Metroid Prime, they might have been thinking, "Right, this is the future of Metroid." They didn't probably think of it as a spin-off. They were like, "Okay, let's modernize it and put it in 3D," and then obviously just works on Fusion at the same time.
The thing I think is interesting is that the Prime branding is used on all but one of these spinoffs. So like Metroid Prime, in the same way that like Super Mario is a brand, like
Mhm.
Metroid Prime is a different brand. And I think it's interesting when you think about it that way, because like when you say, right, like think about this. If I were to say to you, there's a new Mario game coming out this year, what would your first question be, right? Like as somebody who's like versed, you'd be like, oh, what kind?
Yeah, like,
Right?
is it like a 2D or a 3D or whatever?
Right. So now, same question, but with Metroid. But instead of that, I said there's a new Metroid coming out. You might ask that follow up question. Oh, like what kind, 2D or 3D? But if I said a new Metroid Prime is coming out, you'd know what that means. You'd go, oh,
Yeah.
that's the
Well,
3D
you
series.
you think you would, and then it turns out it's pinball or whatever. But yeah, like, I see what you mean
You know what I
of
mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah. Also, in fact, all of them are because Blast Ball is actually just a part of Federation Force. It was a multiplayer
okay.
competitive mode attached to Federation Force. They are all Metroid Prime games that are the spin-off, which is interesting. But I guess it makes sense because, a lot of these games are,
They're all 3D or the right? Like
yes, yeah,
it's
yeah,
based
yeah.
on perspective.
Yes, yeah, 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 and I
Like
think all of
Prime
these games are
is
versions of Metroid Prime that have been squished down onto other systems, DS or 3DS.
Other M first person?
It's a weird mix of you run around and then you can point the Wiimote at the screen and it becomes first person, and then you turn it back around and you're running around again. Um,
Okay.
it was yeah, it's an interesting. I don't again. I wouldn't call that a spin-off because I feel like that was
That's
maybe
like a
at the
mainline
time.
game, right?
That's yeah. That's also I think where they intended the franchise to go before it was badly received. Maybe of like, okay, cool. This is the future of Metroid. It's going to be 3D. Uh, it's going to mix Prime. It's going to mix the 2D ones. We're going to make it 3D or isometric, or and then there's the camera moves around and things like that. It's just a shame it didn't work out. So
So where does this go? I'm thinking what? Like it's either I mean
hard.
it's either last or it's second to last,
I
right?
think it's yeah, I think it's above Animal Crossing still, just because I think Hunters is fine, and I did enjoy it, and I feel like Pinball is, it's just a fun pinball retelling of the game that happens to use Samus in the suit in the morph ball, sorry. But I think yeah, there are a couple of stinkers in there, so I do think it deserves to be above
Okay.
Animal Crossing.
I'll give
So
you that.
now I feel like we're getting to the one that I think is your contender for number two, if I'm right.
Here it is. Yeah, I think so. It's Pokemon.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
one
There's a lot in here.
Yeah, there's a lot in here, and I think Pokemon's interesting because I think when you talk about Pokemon spin-offs, they range from fan favorite console defining experiences, right? Like a Pokemon Snap, right? Which was like, I believe the 10th best-selling game on the N64. Um, Huge moment, right? The
Mhm.
blockbuster integration in the States. I know that's probably not something that you experienced, but that was a
No, but I'm aware of it, yeah.
fucking moment here. Like that was a thing. That was a cultural moment, in the States in the 90s. And similarly, I think, we said we're not going to consider non-game media, so I won't count the Pokemon trading card game itself, but it's multiple game versions,
Yeah, they all
big,
count.
they all count. And the TCG is defining, right? That is
Mhm.
a defining thing. And,
You've
and then
even you've
again,
missed Pokemon Unite off your list actually, just to let
oh
you
my
know.
god, I did it. I loved Pokemon Unite. Like
Yeah.
that's a great one. And again, right, some of the more recent ones that are just like good ass games that maybe they're not the most, beloved, but like Pokken Tournament is like a fantastic fighting game. That is a
Yep.
great game. That is an awesome spinoff. And I think
Pokemon Puzzle League, I remember really enjoying on the Game Boy. I don't think I didn't play it on the N64, but played it on the Game Boy.
yeah, yeah,
Stadium is one that a lot of people always remember.
of
People
course.
really want to come back for some
The
reason, even
mini
though it really
games in
oh, yeah.
Stadium.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Pokemon Pinball, I think, is the
Yeah.
best Nintendo pinball game.
I had a lot of fun with that one. I'm a huge Pokemon Go fan. That has, in many ways, sort of changed my
Again,
life. That game.
yeah, talk about a cultural moment,
Oh
right?
yeah,
That was
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
there was a moment, right? And I know it's silly to say this, but it generally felt this way, right? There was a moment during that summer of Pokemon Go where I was like, maybe the human race is gonna be okay. Maybe this is all right, and there was such a sense of community and
Mhm.
camaraderie and just like
It never went away, man. There are, I in 2018, 19, or whatever, met loads of friends who we used to play Pokemon Go locally. We would go on trips together to various places to play Pokemon Go. A bunch of them I didn't get a chance to go, but they all went to Berlin to the Pokemon. What was it called? Pokemon Go Fest. It was like a live festival. Like, it's one of those games that
yeah,
has, it got me out walking. It made me sort of lose my initial the 40 pounds of weight I initially lost. It sort of I've met some friends that, I've been friends with ever since. Even though, they've stopped playing and I sort of play very, very casually now, we're still friends, and it's because of Pokemon Go. And that also made people get back into Pokemon on the Switch, because they came out with Let's Go, which was the bridger. And then,
yeah.
these Pokemon games since then have all been very popular because the Switch is popular, and people that have played all of those, people that play Pokemon Go. I hadn't played a Pokemon game in a while. When Pokemon Go came out, I bought a 3DS to play Sun and Moon because I wanted to play the new Pokemon game that was coming out.
Right.
Um, there's a lot of, a lot that Pokemon Go does for Pokemon, and I think that there are some games that I don't, uh, mobile games that is, that I don't gel with, like Pokemon EX Masters, whatever it's called, that a lot of people do gel with.
And there's like Cafe Mix
Yeah.
and Quest
Mhm.
and oh my god, there's another one.
Magikarp Jump.
Yes, yes. Like there's and now Sleep and there's the
Yeah.
toothbrushing one and
Yeah.
like there's so much. And then like there are some other games like that I think get kind of forgotten like from the DS era like Conquest and
Mhm.
Ranger,
Pokemon Ranger, yep.
and then of course like the
Troze.
mystery Troze, and then like there's like the mystery dungeon
Yeah, that was a whole
stuff.
yeah, that then there's a
That's a whole
the
other
GameCube sort of
series.
Colosseum, Pokemon XD,
Yeah.
but Detective Pikachu, which had a whole movie based on it. Like
Right.
there's
Right.
just so many, and it's because it's an IP that can fit so many things, and because it's not necessarily owned by wholly by Nintendo, and they have the opportunity to put things on mobile and also on PC, like with Pokemon Unite and the trading card game. There's just seems to be more freedom for them to come up with these games and try things out. So I think, yeah, I think this definitely sits at number 2 quite easily. For now,
Yeah.
we'll see, we'll have an argument later for now,
I
but yeah,
I
this is easy.
Yeah, I think it's an easy number 2. I think it's the only one that has a serious conversation to contend with Mario.
Mhm.
And I still would give it to Mario because I think just the insane number of spin-off franchises from Mario that are bona fide console genre, whatever era defining games in their own right that you can't argue with that. You can't argue with the insane footprint of games like Mario Kart and
Yep.
Mario Party. And even though stuff like Snap and Stadium and all, I think those do all stand toe to toe. There's just so many Mario games, and
Oh,
Mario
yeah.
was around for like a decade plus before Pokemon.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I think it's
so
hard to argue that Mario's number 1, like, while Pokemon is a very strong contender, I think Mario just because even just like Kart, even I guess to a degree Super Smash Brothers, which I think is probably should maybe count as a maybe a spin-off of Mario. I don't know, that's an argument, but
I don't know. I guess maybe you could technically say it's a spinoff of all of these
yeah,
franchises.
yeah, yeah. Well, could that make it number 1? That's the big question. In fact, should that count should that count as a if it's a spin-off of all of Nintendo franchises, should we
What a
count Super Smash
question.
Brothers in the list?
What a
Let's get to the end, and we'll see how we feel about that.
Controversial, but I love it. Okay, moving along. Next up, we got Pikmin, which has two: Hey Pikmin and Pikmin Bloom. Pikmin
Oof.
Bloom is bad, and Hey
Yeah.
Pikmin I never played, but taking a look at it, um, it says Metacritic score was 69. The
Nice.
highest review listed from on the Wikipedia roundup is from Nintendo World Report, who gave it an
There we
8
go.
out of 10.
I think this is very similar to Federation Force in that it came out at a time when people were expecting Pikmin 4 because Miyamoto was saying Pikmin 4 was coming, and
Uh huh.
they came out with a spin-off on the 3DS that people weren't really
It
asking for.
it also came out when the Switch, I believe it
Yeah.
was one of
Yeah,
those
the Switch
games where
was
like the
out, I
Switch
think.
was out already, and then it's like, who wants to play this fucking Pikmin side scroller
Yeah.
spin off on the 3DS when I have a Switch? Like, give me
I
Pikmin
think
4.
this should go beneath Metroid. Whether it goes beneath Animal Crossing, I'm gonna leave up to you. But I do think that it's very similar to Metroid, but I feel like Hunters
Ooh.
and Pinball are both still decent
Max.
games in a
Max,
way.
we made a big
Yeah.
mistake. We made a big
What
mistake.
what's this?
Animal Crossing has a spin-off that we forgot. It's the mobile game. It's Pocket Camp.
Oh,
Pocket Camp was
yeah.
actually good.
Okay,
I would
fine.
say
Let's
I would say controversial. I think we move Animal Crossing above Metroid and we put Pikmin at the bottom.
just sorry for the dead air. I'm just thinking.
You think about it. You think about it.
But I think Hunters and Pinball are fine. I don't think Hunters and Pinball are really bad enough to warrant.
But
Is Pocket Camp good enough
I think
to redeem it from the other stinkers?
I really enjoyed Pocket Camp for a while, and I think that there are people in the community that really stan it. And I remember there being conversation after New Horizons came out where people are like, it's bullshit that Pocket Camp has more options and has more stuff and this and that, and in that this doesn't match up. And I was like, wow, like that's pretty bold, So like, I'd say it's a legit good game as
Alright,
far as mobile games go. And if the
alright,
best we can say about the Metroid entries is that they're good, they're inoffensive, then I say we give it the bump. I mean, the other two are
alright,
bad, but Pocket Camp's pretty good. I think
alright, fine. Do it.
we good. All right, let's do it. Let's
Do
do
it.
it. All right. This is the biggest shakeup we've had so far, and that now puts Pikmin at number 9,
Damn.
and
Saw it
Animal
coming.
Crossing jumps up to number 7. So let's give a recap real quick for the audio listeners. So at number 1 we have Mario. At number 2 we have Pokemon. Number 3 we have Donkey Kong. At number 4 we have Fire Emblem. At number 5 Kirby. Number 6 Bayonetta. Number 7 Animal Crossing. Number 8 Metroid, and number 9 Pikmin. Good list so far. All right, next up, we got one that I was very surprised to see come to this list. Punch Out. And what
Oh,
is the spinoff to Punch Out, you might ask? I'm
I
glad
am
you
asking
asked,
that.
Max. It's called Arm Wrestling. Arm Wrestling is a 1985 arcade game developed by Nintendo and released only in North America. As a spinoff of the Punch Out series and created by the same development team, Arm Wrestling has many of the same features, such as a dual monitor system and quirky computer opponents.
Wow. Um,
Very interesting.
yeah, I honestly would not know where to rank this. This would be very hard for me because I need to, hang on, let me look at it.
It's like it's a very interesting question because there's of course Punch Out, Super Punch Out, the arcade one. Oh no, I'm sorry, arcade is the original, right? And then we have Super Punch
Mhm.
Out arcade as well. Then we have Punch Out, Super Punch Out on the NES and the Super Nintendo. Then we get Punch Out on Wii, and then of course we have Arm Wrestling.
I have no idea what to do with this. What? Yeah, I've got no idea what to do with this, and this has really thrown a spanner into what I thought was going to be quite an easy list because I would have played a lot of them.
And that's why
What?
I had to do it to you. I had to do it
Yeah.
to you. I have played arm wrestling.
Okay, and is it good?
I was a child,
Mhm. So it was great,
so
obviously.
yeah. I thought it was fun. I guess I don't have a super vivid memory of the gameplay, but I do remember playing it and being like, okay, that's pretty cool.
I now this is where the major uh game franchises comes in, right? Because are we counting Punch Out as a major game franchise? Would you say that Punch Out has had enough games in its to sort of be considered a major Nintendo franchise?
I would say, yes. I
Okay.
think it clears the bar here because it's maybe not it's not that popular anymore, but at the time, like especially like when, Mike Tyson at the peak of his relevance as a celebrity was in the game as well. Um it's iconic, and I think for people of a certain age, it was a really, really big deal. And yeah, I mean, they haven't gone back to that well in a long time, right? There was a huge gap between Super Punch Out and then Punch Out on the Wii, and then we never saw it again. But um,
I'm gonna
I'd say you
say
you count it. I'd say you count it.
I think we put this dead last. I think whatever's I would imagine that whatever's in Hey Pikmin is probably more worth playing than I think Punch Out Arm Wrestling would be,
Mm,
personally. That's where
that's
that's
an
where I'm gonna say.
interesting. That's interesting. I don't know. I'm trying to find somebody. I'm trying to find somebody who reviews it. I'm trying to get
Well, 1985, it was,
okay,
yeah,
here we
who
go.
knows?
On imockery.com, I found a review from 2009 where they gave it zero point 0.5 pickles out of 5.
Chuck it at the bottom then. That's easy.
That's
The pickle rating system is infallible. Chuck it at the
infallible.
bottom.
Infallible. Okay. You know what? Fair enough.
You know it makes sense.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to give it to you.
Good
You
lad.
know what though? It says this. It says here we go on Game Facts. I found one and they said that they found it to be superior to the other two games and gave it an 8 out of 10.
I've already said my piece.
All right, fair enough. You know what? I'm going to give it to you, Max. Punch Out goes to the bottom.
Hey, that's what I like to hear.
Feels disrespectful. I feel like we're giving Hey Pikmin a little too much credit, but see
Well,
where we
I've
end up.
I've
We'll
heard
see
of
where we
it,
end up.
so,
That
and
does help.
the fact that this spin-off came out before the Punch-Out game that everyone knows says a lot to me that this came out before Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
Fair enough.
Um, probably hard to call it a
I think it
spin-off.
speaks to how popular the arcade games were, though, that you could
Yeah,
make a spin-off of it.
yeah, I agree. But still, let's
They
move
were a
on
time. They were
to
a
the
time.
next one.
Star Fox.
Yeah, now we've had a disagreement here where I listed Star Fox Adventures, in my list, and you in your list have put not sure if this counts.
Because I would apply, and again, up for debate. But I think if we're remaining trying to remain consistent with our logic, I think the same logic that you applied to most recently, Other M, being like at the time they thought
This
of
is
this
what they
as the
thought it would
future of
be.
the franchise. I
Yeah.
would argue that that was probably the case with this. I think if this game was more warmly received at the time, we probably would have seen more of it. Because
Yeah,
by all accounts, not actually a bad game, just not what people wanted from Star Fox,
yeah,
right?
they were just using the Star Fox character to try and sort of make more of a 3D, sort of what was popular at the time, like a 3D action platformer, sort of like Jak and Daxter or things like that.
Hmm.
Things that were popular on the PS2, and I agree with you there. So I think maybe if we're just basing this entirely on Star Fox Guard, which was a free pack-in with Star Fox Zero and was
It's a
Project Guard
tower
at one
defense
point.
game.
Yep, and I remember, when that was and wasn't there another one? Wasn't there like a robot one where you were fighting a robot? There was like 2 they'd made 2 sort of Star Fox spin-off games, but only one of them released. Project Giant Robot, I think it was called.
Oh, I don't remember that.
No, there was Project Guard and Project Giant Robot. Was
I don't
that
know. Could be.
Oh, no, sorry, it wasn't. I don't think it was actually related to Star in fact, Project Guard was never related to Star Fox until they released it as that. Project Giant Robot and Project Guard were 2 games they revealed at E3 2014. I remember Project Guard was this game that then became Star Fox Guard, and they had Project Giant Robo was like you were on the Wii U fighting in cities. It looked fucking awful. Same with Star Fox Guard looked fucking awful. It was Miyamoto trying a bunch of shit out and none of it really working. And I'm surprised they released Guard as a sort of a spin-off of Star Fox. I'm surprised they sort of got that far. Uh, yeah, I mean Star Fox Guard, as far as I remember, was rubbish, and Star Fox was just sort of tacked onto it, and I feel like it probably goes quite low. But whether it goes as low as Pikmin
Yeah.
or Punch-Out, I mean, I'd say probably below Pikmin because at least, there is some game in maybe not as low as Punch-Out. I think maybe between
Oh,
Pikmin and Punch-Out.
I don't know. Because it's
What
like, I
what are
don't
you
know.
saying? You're saying you wanna put it higher or lower?
Lower, I think.
Oh, then put it dead bottom. I don't mind putting it dead bottom.
Do we? Yeah.
I'm not
Right.
upset by that.
I think if we're not counting adventures, then yeah, I think you put it. I think you put it last. If the game we have to put up is a spinoff to the worst received game in the franchise,
Yeah,
and it's also a rubbish game in its own right. I don't know
yeah.
about that. Yeah, I think we move on from that one. Here's an interesting one. One I think will end up ranking very low despite it being a major franchise. The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, in my head, when I first started putting this list together, I thought Zelda was gonna feature quite highly. Cadence of Hyrule is great. Hyrule Warriors is great. Link's Crossword Training is a fun tech demo. There were a couple of DS and 3DS ones. I think it was more just 3DS. There was Triforce Heroes, I think, and
So
Four
there
Swords.
is, yeah, and that's an interesting one. Like, do you count that as a spinoff? I don't know. Like
I would definitely
technically,
say Four Swords and Triforce Heroes are spin-offs. I think that the ones Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, which you've listed here, that you said you're not sure if they count, I think they are what Zelda was on the DS. I don't
yeah.
think I'd count that as a spin-off. I think that was just the Zelda on the DS, and they then fixed it on the 3DS with Link
I
Between
think that's
Worlds.
fair to say.
So
Whereas like the Zelda like Four Swords stuff is like that was like
they were
specifically a multiplayer Zelda, which is a
yes,
different
yeah.
thing.
And there was Four Swords on the Game Boy, Four Swords Adventures on the GameCube. They were both sorry, Game Boy Advance was Adventures.
Four Swords,
Four Swords, sorry, yeah. Yeah,
and
I
then
think
Triforce Heroes was on 3DS. Yeah, later on, and was kind of like a
yes.
spiritual successor there.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think both the Hyrule Warriors games are pretty good. Cadence of Hyrule, I think, is fantastic. And I'd probably say ranks if you're listing all of these spin-offs individually, I would say, Kingdom Cadence of Hyrule comes very high for me, like surprisingly high. But I remember there were some sort of naff Tingle ones on the DS as well, and
There
you've
are
listed a Picross thing.
four Tingle spin-off
Blimey,
games,
I
and
remember Rosie Rupee Land. There was one that you had to get off of Nintendo, the Nintendo Club, My Nintendo Club, whatever it was
yeah, I was
called.
gonna say
Club
because they
Nintendo,
were.
that was it.
I think they were almost all Japan exclusive, except for that one.
Okay. Alright,
Um,
okay.
but yeah, so there's like a whole series of Tingle spin-offs.
Mhm. And there was
And
the
I'm just
CDI
like,
games.
and then yeah, there's the Philips CDI games, which I do you count those? Probably not, but like if
Well, I think they count. There were spin-off games, it was just on a different
they were
system.
officially licensed, so I
Yeah, yeah,
think
they're
yeah, fair
real,
enough,
real
right?
games.
So I think for me, like when I look at this list, I hate to say this, Max, I did not like Cadence of Hyrule. I don't think it's a bad game.
Really?
I just don't really like rhythm games.
Oh, man, I
Um,
thought it was great.
and it's super cool, but it just I did not like it. I think if I was rating it objectively, like removed from my personal bias, I would rate it highly. Like if you said if we were making an individual list, I would get behind you on making it a
Mhm,
high ranking game on that list, but my personal taste not so high. And I think that's the only game on this list that isn't the Four Swords Triforce, that series. Every other
mhm.
one's bad. Or like a bullshit, like it has nothing to do like Link's Crossbow. Okay, sure, but like it's a motion controller game, right? Like it's
I
not.
Yeah. I think they're probably better than Animal Crossing, but I don't know if we can say that, like you say, most of these games are bad, so I feel like it's still still below Bayonetta. I feel like just because Bayonetta has had one decent spin-off, it's trying something new, whereas a lot of these games have been naff multiplayer sort of versions of things,
Yeah,
so
like I'm inclined to say that there are like two games on this list that I think are good. So
are
I'm
both
I'm
of
kind of
them
with you.
Hyrule Warriors games, maybe. Yeah, let's put it below Bayonetta. I'm sure there's gonna be some disagreement here from people who are big Link's Crossbow training fans, or who for
Hey,
some reason play Triforce Heroes with their friends, but hey, who knows?
hey, that's fine. You write it down below. Like hey,
A
you
3-player co-op game. Bizarre. Bizarre.
yeah, I that whole thing I was like, really? Like why don't we just why don't we just do four again?
Yeah.
We have a precedent here. No? Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Um, okay. So we're getting near the end of the list here. Last big one that I have for you is the Wii series.
Yeah,
Now,
this
this
is
I thought was interesting
interesting. This
because
is
initially
interesting.
I saw this on the list of Nintendo franchises and I was like, yeah? Like, but you think about it for a second, it's a good argument, right? Of course, most famous Wii Sports, right? The sports series, of which there are four entries, right? There's Wii Sports Resort, Wii Sports Club, and Nintendo Switch Sports, all in that franchise. So if you say that's the initial franchise,
Yeah,
fair enough. Then there was also the Wii Play
I
series,
remember.
We Play Motion that came
Played
with the
them, yeah.
Motion Plus controller. Then of course there was Wii Fit Plus, Wii Fit U, we had We Party U, and then there was We Chess, We Music, and We Karaoke U.
I don't remember any of those last 3.
Those last three I don't remember either. I believe they may have been Japan exclusive,
Okay.
but
Was
either
Nintendo Land,
way,
would you count Nintendo Land as a Wii? No, I guess not, but no, probably not.
I think if you wanted to count it as a spinoff to these games, I wouldn't fight you on it.
Okay.
I feel like it feels like a spiritual successor.
I mean, a lot of these games are good. I don't have an issue with a single one of these games. No, none of them are offensively bad. None of them are fantastic. Maybe in Wii Sports is great, but like it's not like it is a party game and it is what it is. It is for playing with friends and sort of filling time in. It's not like,
It's like
oh, I'm gonna.
arguably the best of that kind of game, though, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Right?
would
Like
probably
Wii
agree with you
Sports is
there.
a fucking legit game, however you feel about motion controls.
Oh, okay. Then if we Sports, we party, great. We Fit, great. I would
Yeah,
probably
I'd say I'd
argue,
I'd give I'd give the shout out to We Fit as well, right? Obviously, it's
yeah.
it's not it's not a game in the most traditional sense, but it was a fucking movement. Like that was
Hmm.
another big moment for Nintendo, and it's iconic in
Now
its own right.
the conversation here is: do we think that these all count as spin-offs, or are these just a series of Wii party games, or Wii, Nintendo doing things with the Wii that weren't necessarily games in their own right? They were party packs, they were
I
sort of
want
collections and
I
stuff.
want to argue that it is consistent, like it is a series, or like a set of series, or a series of series. I guess is
Mhm.
maybe a inelegant way to put it. Um, Because I think the through line is they're all, with the exception of the ones that I guess we didn't play, right? Because I don't really know what the deal is with those. But the sports, play, and party at the very least, right, had the consistency of these are motion control based party games that are the primary focus is to be a social party
Mhm.
game, and they all had the Mii's as a through line. Like that was the characters in those games was the Mii's, and you'd make a Mii and you'd use it in every game.
Yep. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I think that to me, and like you think about it, right? The Mii fighter like they're in Smash, like that is a time and place. That is like a moment. That is a franchise that Nintendo had, and I think you look at Nintendo Switch Sports, and like it's clearly an attempt to be a spiritual successor to that era and that style of game that was
Yes.
such a big thing for them back in the Wii generation.
Yeah, I agree. Alright, then if we're going with that, I put this above Kirby. Whether I put it above Fire Emblem is arguable, but I think this is above Kirby then. I mean, I loved, Air Ride.
Yeah, I
There's just been
agree.
so many trash Kirby ones that I
Yeah,
do think, yeah, I think this goes at number 5. Is that right? Yeah, this
I'm gonna
goes
come
at
out and
5.
say it. I'm gonna say it's number 4.
Really think it's better than Fire Emblem? I guess so, yeah, 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 fine, chuck it in there. Let's do it. I'm okay with
I think
that.
we do it. I
I
think
don't
we
wanna
do it.
argue with that.
I think because I think if you even if you just consider it from the sense of Wii Sports is the primary one and Wii Fit is the most famous spinoff, like that is such a like again, if you think back on what are the most iconic games on Nintendo Wii,
Mhm. Well, the iconic game, right? I think
yeah.
that it's hard to argue
The
that Wii
number
Sports
one
wasn't
game
the
is Wii
game.
Sports, right? And I think Wii Fit is shortly after it in that conversation,
Mhm.
in terms of what resonated with the culture at the time. So I'd say you go number 4 and we
Chuck
get
it in.
crazy with it.
4 for now because we need to have the Smash Brothers. I think let's finish off with, do we think that Super Smash Brothers is a spin-off to all Nintendo games? And if that's the case, is it better by being a spin-off to all of those games, is it better than all of the Pokemon ones? I think it's better than all the Donkey Kong ones. I think I would argue that while Donkey Kong's had some great stuff in there, I think that Smash Brothers is better than it. Is Smash Brothers better than all the Pokemon ones? Definitely not
That is
Mario. No way it's better than all the Mario ones just because of Kart and all things like that. I think it goes number 3, personally, but it depends if you think it's better than a lot of the Pokemon ones, and if you think that there's enough Pokemon ones that redeem it to be
I
higher
'cause
than that.
I think I'm inclined to agree with you because
Okay.
a part of me wants to give Super Smash Brothers bonus points for being a spin-off of every game, right? Like
Yeah.
and I think if you want to get really technical about it, the original roster of characters, right? It's a spin-off to Mario and Zelda and Pokemon and
Yeah.
Metroid and on and on and on. That's compelling to me. Like, I think that is a great argument for it being like the ultimate spin-off game because its very nature is a crossover experience, right? That said, I don't think it beats Mario for
Okay.
all the reasons that we pointed out, right? Like Mario as a brand is Mario is Nintendo,
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the day. And he's the fucking guy of any video game mascot franchise whatever. And
Yeah.
so many of his spin-offs are, you know, like kart racing as a genre was created by Mario Kart.
Exactly. There's been so many
You
people
know,
that ape
it's
that, you know?
yeah, and I don't think you can ignore that. I really don't think you can. With Pokemon, I think is where it's a borderline for me. I could see you arguing Smash is number 2 and bumping Pokemon down to 3 because I think what's interesting with Pokemon is I think there are a handful of spin-offs that are similar to Mario in that like these are bona fide legit franchises in their own right, right? Snap comes to mind as like a really big outlier success. Obviously we talked about Stadium being like an N64 defining game. But I think when you get away from the really really big ones like that, a lot of them kind of languish in obscurity,
Mhm.
right? Like
I'm
even the
gonna
ones that
say
are good games.
I'm gonna repeat last week. There's a long tail on that. There's a lot of Pokemon games, the spin-off games, but only a few of them are good and well loved, and a lot it sort of tails off into there's just a lot because they tried so many things. A lot of them are shut down, or a lot of them just aren't doing anything anymore. A lot of them are forgotten, like Conquest and things like that. So there's a lot of them. I just think that a lot of those probably aren't great. Whereas if you think of the Smash Brothers games, 5 of them, I guess there are. Bang, all of them are top tier.
Here's the thing though. Here's actually, you know what though, Max? I have a new take.
Hit me.
Smash Brothers cannot be on this list.
Okay, and why?
What you just said it's disqualified. Because Smash Brothers is great. Smash Brothers isn't a spinoff though. Like it is, right? But it doesn't have spinoffs. And we're ranking the franchises based on their spinoffs, not what is the best spinoff. So if we were doing a individual list like you talked about, where we were being like, okay,
What is
like
the best Nintendo spin-off?
Right, Cadence of Hyrule
Yeah.
is number 5, right? I would argue Smash Ultimate is the number 1 Nintendo spinoff.
I'm on board.
But
I am fully on board. You've
if
won.
we're ranking franchises, it can't be ranked because it does not have a spinoff.
You got me. You got me. You have done it. We have
Fucking A.
agreed. We have made agreements on these things.
So we have a list.
Um,
We have a list here.
I think we're done. Let's
I
let's
think we're
let's
done.
read them out. Read them
All
out.
right, let's read them. So our list as it stands, dear viewers, is number 1, Mario. Number 2, Pokemon. Number 3, Donkey Kong. Number 4, Wii X is what I'm calling it. Number 5, Fire Emblem. Number 6, Kirby. Number 7, Bayonetta. Number 8, The Legend of Zelda. Number 9, Animal Crossing. Number 10, Metroid. Number 11, Pikmin. Number 12, Punch Out. And coming in last place, number 13, Star Fox.
That is the list, ranked list of all of Nintendo's spin-off franchises. Or sorry, oh god, that is the list of all Nintendo franchises based on the quality of their spin-offs. And I think that's
Nailed
a
it.
good list, and I think that has been a great discussion, and it's a lot longer than I really thought it was going to happen. I really thought that we were going to be strapped for time here. It's over an hour and 10 minutes in now, just talking about this, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
Great.
This was a really fun discussion. I
hmm
love doing games like this. I love an excuse to go back and have a little history lesson. Um, Surprised to find learn about games I did not know existed yet again. You'd think that
Same,
eventually you'd run out of Nintendo games to learn about, but here we are.
same.
Um, so yeah, I thought this was a really fun exercise. I hope y'all at home enjoyed it as much as we did. I would love to hear your own rankings, right? If you disagree with our list, if you think certain franchises should be higher, definitely make sure you write in, whether that's you hitting us up in the comments down below, writing into us at questions@flipscreen.games, or coming and joining our Discord where the conversation keeps rolling between episodes. However you choose to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you and hear your thoughts. And assuming that you are, cool and respectful, maybe they'll get read on the air as well in next week's show. So there's your incentive for that. So if you want to go and do any of those things that I just said, if you want to go check out any of our sister shows, if you want to become a Patreon supporter, get your name read on the air, get the show early, get a bunch of other cool perks and goodies. Guess what, kids? There's an easy place for you to find links to all of that stuff. And it is, of course, flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find links to all the places we are all over the web. However you choose to get in touch or get involved in the community, we thank you for tuning in to another episode of Nintendo Noise. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Max. Nope, wait, sorry. He's been Max over there. He's there now. Over there. Oh, there. Yeah, it's close enough. We'll see you next week. We love you. Bye.